So today the bill falls, but not because Parliament voted against it, but because of a handful of peers essentially talked it out. How do you feel, not as a politician today, actually as a human?
Yeah, and thank you for asking the question like that, because that's how I've tried to approach this issue as a human being, not as an MP. I'm a mixture of really sad, really upset, really disappointed, but also a little bit angry as well that we've got to this point when we have a piece of legislation that democratically elected members of Parliament have voted for after a significant amount of debate and scrutiny. And then we've sent that bill to the House of Lords, and I've got a huge amount of respect for the expertise and the knowledge and experience in the House of Lords. But instead of scrutinising and refining the bill, we've sadly seen a small number of peers who have talked the bill out, essentially, meaning it will fall. And what that means is for terminally ill people who all they're asking for is choice, compassion and dignity in their dying days, they won't have that choice this time around. And that is really upsetting. I've spent a lot of time with those families. I have literally thousands of emails and letters from people who are saying, we just want the choice. And for anybody who wouldn't want to make that choice, they don't have to. But at the moment, the safeguards are just not sufficient. We have people taking their own lives. We have people who've got the inequity of being able to go to Switzerland, to Dignitas, which is often presented as an easy option. It's not easy. It's traumatising in its own way. Families then face potential prosecutions. We've also got, and I've heard many of these stories, people who have had horrible, painful, traumatic deaths, even with good care, because there are some horrible, nasty cancers that can't be treated well in those final few weeks of life. And I think as legislators, we have a duty to do something about that. We've put this legal framework in place with multiple safeguards throughout the bill, and it is a robust process. The other criticism sometimes I get is, Kim, you've made this too difficult for somebody who's dying to go through all these different stages. But I just think we've got a duty to fix that situation. And as you've said, the polling is very clear on this. The public support a change in the law.
And now, of course, the House of Lords is a revising chamber. We can talk about its process and its role in all of this, but you'll know that some of even your Labour colleagues in the upper house aren't comfortable with the bill, aren't trying to talk it out, but just don't think it's safe. Luciana Berger, for one, who says that there are no royal colleges that attest to the bill's safety. We don't need to relitigate it all here, but you'll see that there were some reasoned arguments out there. It wasn't just peers just trying to put a block in there. There were some people there who just genuinely didn't think it was safe enough. Yeah,
I mean, we've seen some really good debate, don't get me wrong, but we've also seen a lot of repetitious debate from people, sadly, who I think are just fundamentally opposed to a change in the law. Sometimes that's because of deeply held religious beliefs, of which I am very respectful. But if you said to some of those colleagues, is there any version of this bill you would vote for? I think the answer would be no. And I think, people should be honest about that, which is absolutely fine again. But when there's a small number of, again, unelected peers who are trying to put their views and their opinions on other people, I just think that's democratically wrong, and I think it's morally wrong. And certainly a lot of MPs are very upset about that, because they took this really seriously. They engaged with their constituents, they held sessions in their constituencies, listened to the different views and opinions, and really wrestled with it. I spent hours in my office speaking to colleagues about the issue. And then also the engagement from civil servants has been outstanding. There's a lot of talk about civil servants at the moment. Department for Health and Social Care, the Ministry of Justice, the official people who draft legislation, hours and hours of work has gone into this bill. So I reject the assertion that there's anything wrong with the bill. You might disagree with the principle, and you're entitled to do that.
Rural colleges don't think it's safe, do they?
There's a real mixture of opinions within medical professions, and we've got medical colleagues in the House of Lords, like Dr Claire Gerarda, who is very supportive of a change in the law. We have doctors in the House of Commons, Simon Offer, Peter Prinsley. Because of their medical background, they really do support a change in the law. And I'm respectful, again, of that range of opinions. But it's just very sad that this is where we've got to.
So what do you say today, then, for someone who is terminally ill, who's been following the bill, campaigning for it even? What's your message?
Well, we will go again. We will go again. Yeah, the issue is not going away. There's a very clear direction of travel around the world. And as you've said again from the polling, that this is what the public want. The public just want the choice. And it is choice. It's a bit like gay marriage, isn't it? Marry who you want to marry, love who you want to love. It's nothing to do with anybody else. Yes, we have to give this choice safely, and I firmly believe the bill does that. But I believe there's a number of MPs who would, well, I know there are a number of MPs who would bring the legislation back, and we will go through the process again. And eventually the law will change. So to those terminally ill adults out there who I've spoken to this week, please don't give up hope. I feel so sad that hope has been taken away from you today, but please don't give up hope. But again, I heard people this week, terminally ill people, saying, this is too late for me now. I thought it's just heartbreaking to hear those stories. And that's why I just really struggle to understand why we can't do the compassionate thing, we can't do the right thing.
Procedurally, without going too much into the weeds, does it have to go through the entire process again? I mean, the first thing you need to get is someone drawn at the top of the ballot to be able to, and willing to put it back as another motion. And then do you have to go through the whole procedure again?
Well, you kind of would and you kind of wouldn't. The work has been done on the bill, so the bill is now there. You're not starting from scratch. The bill is now written, it's drafted, it's had all those months and months of work gone into it. So we would need an MP who would be taking that bill forward again. We would have debate in the Commons, but it wouldn't need the rigorous debate and scrutiny that we had. And then it would go back to the Lords, and the Lords can then amend it. But what they can't do is block it. And I think that's absolutely the right thing.
Interesting.
Okay.
All right. Kim, just while we have you as well, and just onto another topic, it's 10 years since the sad death of your sister. There's been some violent rhetoric in the past couple of weeks from some parts of the political community. And I wonder, at this sort of stage, as we start thinking about Jo again, how that sort of rhetoric is sitting with you and what you sort of made of some of the things that we've heard. It was a reform candidate, wasn't talking about Theresa May.
It's really upsetting. And look, I've been giving the same interview for 10 years now, since Jo was killed. We've all got a responsibility to think about what our political discourse looks like, and that is everybody from people who are elected, to candidates, to journalists, to social media companies, to every single member of the public, about how we speak to each other and how we treat each other. I had a candidate for the local elections attacked this week. You know, this is not what our society should look like, and there are very serious consequences to language and to rhetoric and to things that people say, and my family knows that more than any. I just would ask everybody to just step back, try and find common ground, and when you can't find common ground, disagree respectfully and with civility. I just don't think that's an impossible task, but we all need to think about our own personal responsibility in that and what that looks like. And you're right, it's 10 years since Jo was killed, and I've reflected a lot on that, and I don't think we're in a better place than we were in 2016, and that is a bit depressing. But it doesn't mean that we give up hope, and we all need to keep working towards the kind of political culture that I think we should be giving the public.